Hey, thanks for joining me in the kitchen today. Well, an extension of my kitchen because I have started out today at this barbacoa pit that I built in my backyard a number of years ago. And this is for making real traditional style barbacoa, whole animal cooking, usually a lamb or a goat or a small pig. Now that may be more than most of you want to bite off. So I'm going to take you through some really cool ways of approaching barbacoa so that it's going to be super easy for you, but really, really delicious. Now, if you're going to go whole hog, as we would say here, and build your own barbacoa pit, this one is lined with fire brick. It's about 2.5 feet deep and about 3.5, 4 feet all the way around. I did that because when we cook barbacoa here, whether it's lamb, goat, or pig, we do it in primal cuts, big chunks of the animal put into this braising pan that gets lowered down here. Now, the critical thing about barbacoa is that it's not live fire cooking, even though you're seeing live fire right here. You just get it super, super hot. That may take all day long to get these bricks all really hot. And then you let it burn down till there's just coals. You put your animal in there with its flavorings or leaf wrappings. We'll talk about that in a second. And you drop it down into here. Put this top on it, cover it with dirt, and that puts out the fire. There's no fire. It's just cooking by the residual heat of these bricks and the earth that's all around it. Now, I said that usually you protect the animal with some kind of leaves, and I've got the 3 traditional leaves right here. And the cool thing is, I can get all of these in Chicago. So no matter what style of barbacoa I want to work with, I can get the leaf to give it the right flavor. You don't even need a leaf if you don't want to, but it does add a certain element that I just love. So this is a penca de maguey. This is the maguey leaf or agave leaf. It's always trimmed around the outside because there's little thorns there. You just roast this over the open fire till it gets really soft, and you would just line that brazier over there with the roasted agave leaves, put the meat in, put more leaves on the top of it, and then everything is hunky-dory. If you're going to be making the barbacoa style cochinita pibil, then you're going to be doing the suckling pigs, but you're going to wrap it in banana leaves. Most of us get the banana leaves frozen in 1-pound packages. You just pull those out. Those can be lightly roasted over the fire as well. And then you wrap your pig marinated in achiote in that. This is the one that I really love. Avocado leaves on there. And I just got these right down at the Mexican grocery store that's really near my house. These are going to give a slight anise-like flavor. The agave adds a sweetness to it. And of course, the banana leaves have a sort of herbaceous quality to them. Enough about all that. We got to get to cooking. I'm going to take you into the kitchen. I'm going to show you the next step down from a live fire pit in your backyard. Now, when I'm cooking outside the whole animal, I'm looking for an animal that's sort of around that 40-pound range. If I want to scale things down, because that's going to feed about 40-some people, when I scale it down, I usually go for a roasting pan, and I bring the whole thing inside and use my oven as a way of braising the animal that I'm going to be using. Again, it could be goat, it could be lamb, it could be the suckling pig again, but we're going to actually make this really accessible for you by talking about beef. Because lots of people, when they're going to make barbacoa at home, they make beef barbacoa. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use the leaves, and I'm going to encourage you to because that'll give it a very specific flavor. If you do see one of these in your Mexican grocery store, and like I said, around Chicago, you can find them quite easily, you would, of course, have to cut it up to fit your pan there, but I'm doing this only because I want to show you one thing that's really critical here. Once you cut it like that, don't touch it, because if you're not used to it, it can give you a rash on your hands. So be really careful if you do that. I just put it over an open flame here, and I'll just roast it on one side, roast it on the other. You just want it to be kind of pliable. Then lay it down in here. You're going to want a second piece that you put on the top to give it that sort of sweetness that you would get from agave. And this would be for about, like if you're looking for around 10 pounds of meat, you could do that in this. So we've gone now from like 40 pounds to 10 pounds. Now I'm going to show you what most of you are really going to do, and you're going to use the handy dandy slow cooker, because that is an easy way, and it's a great party dish. But these will hold about 3 to 4 pounds, and let's talk about what you could put in there for meat. Of course, you could do lamb, a lamb shoulder if you wanted to. If you have access to goat, again, it would be the goat shoulder that you would be working with. Bone equals flavor, so don't get a boneless one unless that's all that's available. Get one with a bone in it. But you're looking for something that takes a long time to cook and is really flavorful. In beef, this is what I've got right here in front of me. I will unveil these guys here. I've got on this side over here the short ribs, and in my Mexican grocery store they're not cut like this, but they always have short ribs there. They always have beef shank, and that works perfectly well for this kind of a preparation, long slow cooking. This is just beef chuck. And this one has no bone in it, because at the regular grocery store that I go to, they don't hardly ever have them with the bone in them. You're going to want 3 to 4 pounds. I say that because if it's got a bone in it, go to the 4-pound side. If it's boneless, then you could go on the 3-pound side, but get essentially what you need to serve the group that you are cooking for. Today, I'm going to do the short ribs because I love barbacoa style short ribs. They're so delicious, so beefy flavored. Now, when you're talking about the slow cookers, you got lots of choices there, but I'm just going to say always choose one, if you're looking to buy one, that has an insert that is stovetop ready. So I have 2 here. These are ones that I've had for years and years. This one's crock pot on the side here. It's got a stovetop ceramic insert that can come out, and I can just put that right onto the fire, which is actually where I'm going next with this thing. And then I have, and this one costs around $60, something like that. And then on the high end of things, this was a wonderful gift to me. This pushes $300, got all kinds of bells and whistles. This one is from Allclad, and you can find them in all price ranges between those two. It's sort of going from high to low there. So I'm going to put this insert here. Now, if you don't have an insert that comes out and you can put on the stovetop, my suggestion is that you just use a very large, heavy skillet to do this next step. So what I'm going to do is to brown it, and then I'm going to put a marinade on it, because I'm going to take you down the road toward Oaxacan flavored barbacoa today. For me, it's the most delicious one that you can do in a slow cooker. So I'm heating this up now. I'm going to give it just a little bit of oil to coat the bottom of the pan here. And when it's hot enough to get a sizzle going on, then I am going to start taking these short rib pieces here and laying them in here. And then I'm going to salt them and flip them around. Here's a sizzle start. There's my little sizzle starting there. And I'm just going to stand these guys up in here, and we'll keep turning them until they're browned on all sides. This is what I was looking for. Is that kind of a crackle there. Take some salt and give it a salt on the top here. And as we turn it, we will keep salting it. Kind of a loud sizzle going on from that pan there. Now let's talk about marinade while that is working over there. So this is all going to be done in a very simple way. We are making a classic adobo here, a red chili adobo. But where I would oftentimes work with these dried chilies and toast them and soak them and then blend them, here I'm taking a very simple way of just putting everything in the blender and blending it. The reason? Long, slow cooking. It'll take all of the harshness out of the chilies. So let's do chilies first. We have guajillo chilies, and these of course are the long smooth skinned chilies. You can easily find this in any Mexican grocery store. They look like a New Mexico chili, but they're smaller than a New Mexico and much brighter in flavor than the New Mexico. Just pull the stem off of it and then pull the seeds out. You don't have to be too meticulous about this. Just tear them up and put them into the blender jar. And we're going to pair these bright flavored guajillo chilies that have a sort of medium heat to them with the sweeter notes of an ancho chili. So tear those guys up and throw them in there. Okay, now I'm on to the ancho chilies here. So I'm doing the same thing with those, tearing them open, pulling the seeds and little veins out of there, and then tearing that up. For this particular marinade, I'm starting with 3 of the guajillo chilies, average size ones, and 2 of the anchos. Okay, so you've noted there that I'm talking about brightness against sweetness, and that's what these 2 chilies are going to give us. Now it's time for us to go back and look at what we've got going in the stovetop ceramic insert. So let's see here what these guys look like. That's a beauty. Okay, nice and browned. So we want to get that beautiful brownness on these things so that it will increase their beefiness. Back to salt over the top of them there. And we're going to let those brown now on the other side while we finish this simple marinade. Simple because it's not too labor intensive. Let's just put it that way. So we of course got to peel the garlic. I'm just going to do that by mashing it below the blade of the knife so that I can get that skin off of it really fast. We've got 4 good sized cloves of garlic. Again, you'll see that usually I would say call for roasted garlic in this situation, but I'm not doing that. I'm just going to put it in here because of the long, slow cooking that this beef will have. Okay, so put those guys in there. Our last bit of garlic here will go in. Now let's talk about the spices. I'm going to combine allspice, black pepper, and Mexican oregano. You will find all kinds of recipes for adobos that are very different than this, with different kinds of combinations of spices, sometimes as much as 12 different things that go in. I'm keeping this one kind of simple, and I'm using my little tiny molcajete here to crush that allspice and the black pepper, and they crush very easily in this. You'll notice how I'm holding the pestle here. It gives me the leverage to crush this stuff. And once I get that into this incredibly aromatic, oh man, that smells so good. When I get it very like that, very, very pulverized, that'll go in there. Some people will put just a touch of sugar in there. You can feel free to use the Mexican piloncillo or some brown sugar. Just a tablespoon or 2 could go in there. And then I'm going to measure in here 2 teaspoons of salt because that's really important for this dish. It's not only important, but it's important to have a measured amount here because that's seasoning for our dish. And then I've got, for chilies, also a little bit of chipotle here. This will help to underscore the smokiness that you would get out of what we would do out in the yard. So just 1 of those guys will go in there. And now a little bit of vinegar. So you can use all kinds of vinegars in this. You've got apple cider vinegar that's very common in Mexico. Distilled white vinegar would work in this. It's not a major player. I'm using some rice wine vinegar that I have in my kitchen right now. It's kind of a light flavored vinegar, a couple of tablespoons of that. Some people would put more than that in there, but I like that quantity of it in there. And I think besides water, we've got everything now in the blender jar. I'm just going to pour in 2 cups of water, put the top on it, and then just start this blending. This is going to take about 2 to 3 minutes because of the tough skins of the Guajillo chilies especially, but also the ancho chilies. Okay, this is kind of noisy here because we got the blender going, we got the sizzle of these short ribs browning over there, but now we're ready to put the adobo onto the short ribs. They're beautifully browned. I mean, they're going to really have a lovely flavor. When I say that the browning brings out the beefiness of it, that's really what is critical here. Now, I'm going to pour it through. I've got a Vitamix blender, which is a high-speed blender. You almost could avoid this step if you have a Vitamix and you've let it go long enough. But most people, if you have a different kind of blender, will need to pour it through a medium mesh sieve. So I'm going to pour this in here. And then using a spatula, just press it on in like that. And I'm just letting it just fall down and around, then we'll mush it in there. But you can see, after I can see, maybe you can't see right now, that there's almost nothing left in my strainer. Just that nice little tiny bit of the skins of the chilies. I've got a little bit more here, and I think I'm going to use it all. If you're only using 3 pounds of meat, this was 4 pounds of these short ribs. If you're only using 3 pounds of meat, you might have a little extra, but you'll love having that in your refrigerator to use as a grilling marinade for something. So I would put a little bit less than what I'm using here, but go ahead and make the full amount. Okay, now we hear everything is starting to calm down sound-wise here. I'm going to use the tongs to kind of mush everything around to make sure that everything is getting coated nicely with this marinade. The smells in here are just absolutely amazing right now. And I think you will be very, very happy with making your short ribs or your beef shank. But we need to talk about leaves now. Okay, so we've already talked about what we would do if we were using the agave leaf, but that's going to be the hardest one to find. Banana leaves, you really do need to slide one underneath there and then another piece over the top because we've used this now for the browning and all that sort of stuff. With these avocado leaves, a lot of people will tell you to toast them lightly. I think you only have to toast them if they're fresh. These kind of leaves that are dried, I think we can just get away with sort of putting them around on here. And then what I'm going to do is to use my tongs to pick these guys up and let some of them sort of slide down in there into the juiciness of what's going on here. This is the coolest thing about this particular stovetop ceramic. It's still I've turned the fire off and it's still simmering like mad here, which means it holds the heat really beautifully. So with the avocado leaves sort of now pushed down and in and around, I'm going to throw a couple more on top. You need a dozen or so to make the flavor come out nicely here. I'll throw a few more on the top like that. And then we're ready to put that onto the base. Oh, I didn't talk about the beer. Okay. On the recipe, I have included the option of putting a little beer in here. You can do that or not do that. It's totally something that is up for grabs. If you're going to do it, I would choose something that is like a malty beer. So I've got the Modelo Negra here, and we could just put a little bit of it. It just adds a little sweet element to it. About a half of one of these guys would be enough. Too much will make the thing taste not like barbacoa. So I like it to be done just like that. Okay, so now onto the base we are going to go here. So I'll pick this guy up and put him over here and move these guys out of our way so that you can see here that I am going to turn it on high, and I'm going to set my timer for 4 hours, and we're going to let that cook then for that amount of time. Some of these have a setting that after the 4 hours it'll go on keep warm, so it could keep warm for 4 more hours, and you would be able to come back from a day of work or something and have perfect barbacoa ready for you. Well, let's go on and look at this one over here. It's steamy and beautiful, so this is finished its cooking time. I will bring it over to show it to you because it is so beautiful here. Okay, so there is some beautiful juiciness. This is a perfect braise. The meat is sticking up at the top, which is what a braise would always be. We're going to take some of those leaves off of there. I'm going to actually put them over here into this roasting pan that I have sitting on the side to get them out of our way. And then we can look and see what this beef shank barbacoa looks like. We don't need them anymore. You could use some fresh ones as a presentation if you wanted to, just to show people that you use something really beautiful here. I'm going to take the meat out of here and put it directly into our serving platter. So let me move that serving platter front and center here. The platter, I'm going to line mine with a little bit of banana leaf because I think that's so beautiful. And I think it makes a nice liner for a barbacoa platter here. So we'll move this guy over here now and take these chunks of beef barbacoa out of here. Now, the reason that this isn't a stew is because we don't have enough liquid in it to make it a stew. It is a braise where you've got a little bit of liquid that's covering the meat, but not completely. Pull that guy back out. See how pretty this is? And the smell is just incredible. So you get that browned beef flavor coming in here, but you also get sort of those exotic spices of the adobo that we used. Now in Oaxaca, when they make barbacoa like this, it's a slightly different setup, but they always have this good juice to strew over everything. So I'm going to tip this guy up now that we've taken out all the meat. I'm going to tip it up and use a spoon to put some of it over. You might want to let this sit for a while so that you can get fat off the top of it. But actually, every time I'm in Oaxaca and you eat these little beautiful tacos of the goat barbacoa that they do, they always splash a little of this broth on the top because it's very concentrated in flavor. And some of that fat that is there is what makes it so delicious. So just a nice splash like that. And that's really what you need for a beautiful plate of barbacoa. Now, what I would do is serve this with a lot of hot tortillas, maybe a little chopped onions and cilantro, maybe a splash of a hot sauce. I think that's absolutely delicious. In Oaxaca, they have these little wild avocados that they like to put on the table, and you can peel those and cut them up into bits and put that in your taco as well. I think that gives you some good ideas. You've got lots of different choices for meats. A very simple way to make barbacoa in a slow cooker. If you have an Instapot, that could work as well. It's not quite as big or as open as this, so you might feel like it was a little fuller than if you use a slow cooker, but it has a slow cook. That Instapot has a slow cook setting, so you could easily make barbacoa in that. I hope that this really makes you want to run to the kitchen and make barbacoa because it is one of the most soul-satisfying dishes in the Mexican repertoire. Thanks for joining me today.